developing enterprise and community distributions at the same time. Impossible? Please welcome Frederick.
So just to make sure the recording is working, my root password is ********. Now everybody knows about it. Okay, so my name is Frédéric Rosa. I'm working at SUSE as one of the SUSE Linux Enterprise release manager. And today I will talk to you about how we try to develop our enterprise distribution alongside with the community distribution in openSUSE. And some people think it can't be done, and we are trying our best to make it possible. And I'll use Tumbleweed, Leap, and SLE as an example. So first, just quick guess, how many people know the difference between Tumbleweed, Leap, and SLE? Okay. Just quarter or third of the room. So that's good because I did a slide just to make sure everybody knows what I will be talking about if you are not used to openSUSE. So I will use very often the term SLE, which is a SUSE Linux Enterprise. This is the SUSE product. So a set of products, so like SLES, the server product, SLED, the desktop product, and among others. So this is an enterprise distro, long-term support, etc., 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 which is developed by SUSE. Then we have what we call openSUSE Factory, which is our development repository. So for people used to Fedora, this is equivalent of Rawhide, roughly. And for Debian, I don't remember the name of the development repo, but yeah, you get the idea. We have also now, on openSUSE, we have two distributions, not just one. We were a bit crazy. We thought, nah, why do just one distribution? Let's do two. We have what we call openSUSE Tumbleweed, which was initially created by Greg Crow-Hartman, and then the focus was changed a little bit, and that's openSUSE rolling release, a bit like Gen 2, Arch, etc., except that it's based on openSUSE Factory or development repo, but it has to be fully tested and it has to pass our automated tests powered by OpenQA to be released. So on a good week you get one release every day. On a slow week you might get 2 releases per week. It depends, and usually you get one kernel every week, or on heavy weeks you get a lot of kernel changes, etc. So this is a very fast rolling release. And on the other side we have now what we call openSUSE Leap, which is our stable distribution, which is based on the SUSE Linux Enterprise code base, plus some part which are coming from factory or some specific repos, but most of the things are coming from factory. So we have a mix of something very stable as a base and something more fancy or more recent on the top. So I hope you can see the slides because yeah, there is a lot of light. But mostly you can see how we create the various products. So we have openSUSE Tumbleweed on the top, which is thanks Richard. We have openSUSE Tumbleweed, which is always rolling. And we have our SLE code base, SLE 12 Service Pack 2, SP3, and then SLE 15. And then Leap is based on top of the shared code. And when we do a new service pack on the enterprise level, we usually either we backport things from upstream or from Tumbleweed, or we just grab packages from Tumbleweed. So this is the theory. Now let's talk about the reality. First, what we learned from or past. So I usually use the same example, so sorry for people who attended the openSUSE conference previously. So I'm going to use the desktop that we ship on SLE, which is GNOME. And for our last major code base, so SLE 12, which was done 3 to 4 years ago, something like that, we decided, we'll take GNOME 3.10, which was, at that time, the release which was available upstream, more or less. And then we patched it. We fixed bugs, we added new features for our customers, etc., etc. The only thing is that we just kept our patches in our SLE repo, and we didn't push them on open, or we try to push them upstream, of course, but we don't always push them to openSUSE Factory, so to our development repo. And we always said, oh yeah, we are in a hurry, we'll do that later. And then we released SLE 12, and then 1 year later we released SLE 12 SP1. But we had so many bugs to fix that, okay, yeah, we'll upstream later. And so basically nothing happened for SLE 12 SP1. So we had two code bases, not completely, but really diverging. So the stable GNOME for the enterprise customer, and for people on openSUSE, something more recent, directly from upstream, but losing sometimes fixes which were done for customers. So it was really not great. So we realized that, okay, we have to take action there. We really need to fix this mess, because otherwise it will be unmaintainable on the long term. Just as reminder, the code base for a SLE product, we have to maintain it for 13 years. So you really want to make sure that you have something which is sustainable. So what we say that, okay, for the next service pack, what we'll do is we want to sync our GNOME version in SLE and the one we have in openSUSE. So we took the chance to update the version of GNOME from 3.10 to 3.20. And at the same time, we said, okay, can we make the source package exactly the same for both projects? And we did it. It was 300 packages. We had people discussing between the SUSE desktop teams and the openSUSE desktop teams, which were completely different people. The openSUSE desktop team, or the openSUSE GNOME team, is known to be very picky at documenting changes. Richard is part of it. Now these days I'm also part of it, but at that point in time, and it's still ongoing, you have to make sure your changelog are really verbose, well written. All the patches has to be properly documented with a bug number, etc. So it's really something that sometime in the SLE product on the desktop side, people were a bit sloppy. So they have to cope with the rule of the openSUSE guy. Okay? And we made sure to help the developers that they could see how much they were diverging between the SLE product and the openSUSE packages. And so far, when there were changes which were really, this seems to be just useful for enterprise customer. If we do that for the openSUSE people, they will be upset, etc. So let's add the patch, but we only build it for SLE. So we made sure that we were not breaking the openSUSE side of the world. And we also discovered that sometimes the openSUSE people were suffering from bugs that we had fixed it in SLE, but we forgot to enable the patch. So they had the patch. It was not just enabled. So, but we did it. The point was that we were able to work internally and then push to openSUSE. we made sure that we had checks in place to make sure that packages, this is a requirement for the SLE people, we should always never lose a bug number in changelogs or feature number fades, as Richard talked about in the changelog, or a CVE number, because we want to be sure that we never have a regression in the code base when we upgrade a package. And this is something that sometimes the openSUSE project was not that concerned about. So this is something we kind of enforced. But the openSUSE people were very helpful in accepting that we injected bug numbers which were kind of fixed, but the code never showed up in the openSUSE code base because it was just fixed by upstream, but we just had a way to tag that, okay, this bug, it has been fixed in the code base. And so far, these days, the bugs which are found on the lib package, but where the lib package is coming from the SLE, it's pushed to the SLE people. So in short, it means that packages and users using packages which are inherited from SLE get basically the SLE quality, or at least what we sell to customer, but they get it in openSUSE. So best of both worlds. So this was the past. And now, let's see what we have currently, what we are working on, which is SLE 15, our next major release, and lib 15, which is the equivalent on the openSUSE side of things. So first, let me show you how we get things into our project, how we get changes in our project. So how many people are familiar with the Open Build Service, or OBS? Oh, that's good. And not only openSUSE and SUSE people, that's even better. So this is roughly what's happening when people want to do a change on the code base, either on SLE, so we have our own copy of the build service, we have an internal build service, and or on factory, so on Tumbleweed, the openSUSE side of things. So I use the term developer. You can replace that with a contributor if you prefer, but a volunteer. I'm fine with that. So developer is going to create what we call a submit request, basically a change, a patch with a changelog, a new version, a new table, whatever. He's going to send that, so he's going to build that in his own branch, and he's going to send that to a specific distribution, so it can be SLE 15, it can be factory, etc. Then this change is going to be staged, and a small subset of the distribution is going to be generated. So basically we recreate the entire distro based on this change, and we are going to test it with OpenQA. We are not going to run a full test suite, but we just want to make sure that basically we can still install the distribution, the desktop still starts, and the icons are still in the proper place, etc., etc., etc. So this takes about 20 minutes to 1 hour these days. And the change is blocked at that point. Then, at the same time, we have a review team which is going to check the change. So the review team can be on the SLE side, it's usually a release managers and other people who are used to the code. On the openSUSE side, it's going to be also release manager from openSUSE, and very often before that there will be the people responsible for the set of packages. Let's say the GNOME openSUSE team. They are going to first review the change and say, yeah, it looks fine. So we have the 4 eyes review principle in effect on both sides. And if the change is fine on the OpenQA side, and if the reviewers say, yeah, looks okay, fine, then we accept the change. It's going to be integrated in the distro, which is going to be rebuilt. And then we are going to rerun the test suite, but this time we are going to run the test suite with all the tests. So you have an idea of how we integrate changes in the distro. So we decided to put at that level here a lot of automated reviews and a policy to make sure that we don't diverge, or at least we don't diverge too much. I forgot, if you have questions, you don't have to wait until the end. So we have what we call internally at SUSE, we have what we call the factory first policy now in place, since it was already kind of in place since our previous service pack, but now it's really fully in place for our new code base. This states that the development of the distribution has to be done on factory. People should not do their change on our internal build service. They should do their development on the open build service, and they have to push everything on the openSUSE factory. So basically on Tumbleweed, the rolling release, which can be released almost every day. And then once it's merged in the openSUSE factory, we then take it back and push it in our SLE 15 code base. So the idea is really to do the development in the open. There are always some caveats. Sometimes we have some features which are developed with some partners which are under NDA until a specific date, so we cannot release the code base until the NDA has ended, etc. But for most of the things, that's what we do. And to make things easier for developers, we said, okay, since we are asking you to do the development on Tumbleweed or factories, it's the same, you don't have to even take care of SLE 15, at least for now. We have a bot which is going to look at all the changes which are accepted in the development distro, and it's going to retrofit those changes in the SLE code base. So it's really something like you are working on an enterprise product, the next enterprise product, but in fact you are working on the openSUSE Tumbleweed, and we just generate the enterprise product based on that. So really, this is to prevent forks or unwanted forks. And yeah, because I'm not following exactly my slides. Did I say everything I had? Yeah. So those submission from this bot, when something is accepted on factory and pushed back to SLE 15, they are still reviewed by the same 4 eyes principles. They are still reviewed by the release manager on the SUSE side. And sometimes we find mistakes. Or we find something, oh yeah, but this might fly on openSUSE, but it won't fly on SLE for that reason. And then you have 2 solutions. First, either you say, I'm going to fix that just for SLE. This is the easy way. Nah, no. Usually what we do is we reject the change for SLE, and then we notify whoever did the change, saying, okay, what you did, it's not great. Could you please fix it? And make sure that you fix it on factory, and then when it's accepted, we'll get the proper change. Funny thing is, sometimes we detect things even if it was reviewed by 4 different eyes in factory, we detect issues with our own 4 different eyes on SLE, and then we just fix it. And so far, it has been in place since we have started to work on SLE 15. And it's still in place until this week. So we are still in beta phase, but we had this update crawler, what we call the update crawler bot, which is just crawling the factory system and making sure that all the changes are pushed back to the SLE product. Yes?
You mentioned that there are some. What are the main reasons for such occurrences? Like, is it something working for openSUSE part but won't work for SLE?
So I'm repeating the question. So why something would work on openSUSE and would not work on SLE? And
yeah, what are the main reasons?
The main reasons, I'll go there a bit later, but an enterprise product is always much smaller than an open source version, usually. Compare Fedora and Rail or SLE and openSUSE. So we focus on less things, and sometimes a package might enable things like, oh, we want to build for 200 language bindings, or that we don't ship on the SLE side. So we want to disable that. We don't want to have build requirements on that. Or it can be that they want to support something which we don't ship on the enterprise product. Or sometimes there are a few cases where we are on purpose diverging from the openSUSE side of things, and then we have to say, yeah, but it won't work, so we have to handle this slightly different. But this is, I would say, a conscious decision. It's just not happening like that. So basically, the factory first policy is your submission won't pass unless it has good reason to pass. So we have, as I said, we have put a lot of bots in place to check all the submissions which are done. We have a legal bot. What it's going to do is check each submission and compare that with our legal database, which contains all the source code, did an analysis on the source code and checked the license of each files, did a report and gave that to our legal team, who have said, yeah, looks okay, or there is proprietary in the source code. I don't think that's good, and they're going to reject it. So, but there is a lot of automation to make sure that we don't end up filling our lawyer desk with that of, no, it's not on paper, but you get the image of reviews. But it's still catching a few things here and there. That's always good. Then we have what we call the maintenance bot. It's trivial, but it just makes sure that the submission that has been sent already builds in the branch from the developer. Because sometimes people send something and it doesn't even build for them. It happens. It can be not always their fault, it's just that they did something, they sent a submit request, and then basically things change under their feet, and it doesn't build anymore, and no. So we don't bother even reviewing the change because we know it's going to break if we accept it. So it's automatically rejected. We have, I talked about that earlier, we have what we call the change log checker. So this is a requirement for SLE. Any change has to have a bug number or a feature number or a CV number. So during the development phase, it's not really enforced, but once we enter the RC phase, or once we have our product shipped, and we work on service pack, we want to make sure that each change is properly documented and we know why we are doing some changes, not just doing changes at random. And then the last bot, which is the one that people complain a lot internally, is what we call the leaper bot. This bot is going to check, is going to enforce that the factory first policy is properly done or followed. So if the package has been directly submitted from factory, yeah, everything will be fine because it's already upstream in our upstream, which is openSUSE. So okay, but sometimes people are in a hurry or they want to get their change in the distro, in the SLE distribution very early, before it's even accepted on the openSUSE side of things. So there, the bot is going to check, is this submission accepted on factory? If not, is it accepted in the development project on openSUSE? And if not, rejection. And that's when you start seeing people complaining. Because, yeah, but I did exactly the same change on both sides, and it's, yeah, but you didn't really do the same change because you did the work twice at 10 minutes of interval, and your changelog entry doesn't have the same timestamp. So basically, you put the burden on yourself because you did the work twice. You could have done it just once, and it would have been accepted. So it's really, we are really trying to change the mindset of people to contribute directly to our upstream, which is openSUSE, and at the same time reduce their own work. And if they don't do that, the process is going to reject. And there are cases where we decide, okay, this package we accept to not follow anymore factory, so our development. We want to branch because this is still an enterprise distribution, and we at some point know that we are going to freeze the version of things, or we are not going to take every last changes or every new version of everything. So for instance, we have branched our kernel. We are based on kernel 4.12. It has been decided a long time ago. So the kernel is not going to be submitted from Tumbleweed to SLE, but the bot is still going to check if there is something which is a similar change which has been pushed to factory. So this is still good because the kernel is here not a good example, but let's take a package, I don't know, Firefox or whatever. You want still, when there is just a change, to make sure that do we have the same change, has it been pushed to factory or not? Sometimes it's not relevant because it's a backport from a new release which is already in factory, but sometimes it's really just a patch with a fix just for one thing, and you just want to be sure that this patch has been pushed in both code base. Because if you don't do that, then the next time we rebase our distribution on factory, so for SLE 16, in 3-4 years, I don't know exactly, people will have to do the work again. They will have to push their change again to factory. As an example, when we did this entire process for SLE 15, we compared everything in the latest SLE 12 code base and factory, and we found sometimes patches which has been pushed since SLE 8 or SLE 9, so that's something like 10 years. So the guy, 14? Okay, so for 14 years, a guy was doing a change every major code stream release, so let's say every 4 years. Every 4 years, he was pushing the same change, the same patch, it's still applied On the enterprise code base, it never went to the openSUSE side of things. So the guys were redoing the work every 4 years, for 14 years. So some people might say, yeah, that's a way to make sure you still have a job. But if he would have done that in the first place, he would have saved a lot of effort. And because we're now enforcing this rule, we don't want this kind of ugly things to happen. So it was like, yeah, submission, factory first. We won't take it in SLE. You have to fix it, but factory first. And now it's in factory. So in 4 years, or 3, 4, 5 years, the job won't have to be done again and again and again. So yeah, this is a LeaperBot. As I said, and Richard already said it, because we had a lot of discussion on that. If you want to do this kind of policy, use automation. Really. Because people will be frustrated by the policy, but they will be less frustrated if the rejection is coming from a bot rather than a human. We saw it.
Actually, just in addition, make sure you give your bot a name that mentions bot. You made the mistake of naming some of our bots after real people. And
Yes. So repeating the comment from Richard, make sure your bot name contains the name bot in it, because we tend to have in our internal build service, every account has to be binded at first to somebody, and basically the mail was sent by somebody, and people didn't realize it was not somebody rejecting, it was a bot, which was just impersonating somebody. But really, it's helping a lot, because people tend to be less frustrated when they get a rejection by a bot. They would say, yeah, okay, I'll fix it. And then they comply to the rule. Especially, it was really visible on the changelog checker. Rejecting when there was no changelog entry, not a bug number entry, was really something we were enforcing before manually. And people didn't, they wouldn't argue. When it's a bot, it's rejected. They submit, 1 minute later they get a mail that it has been rejected, and then 1 minute later we get another submission fixing the damn thing.
Mission accomplished.
Yes, exactly, mission accomplished. Of course, you will always get people arguing, sometimes for good reason, but that's fine. When you reject something, don't just say reject. Make sure to say why you reject. Or LeaperBot is making sure to give URLs to why it was rejected, like the diff between the package which is submitted and the package which is on factory. So people can see that, yeah, you have trailing spaces. Our bot is sometimes a bit dumb. It's not going to do semantic difference between patch set. It's just going to do a plain diff. And then if something is slightly different, that a human would say, yeah, that's fine. No, the bot is going to be very dumb. Nah. But if you can give enough information in the rejection, people will fix it themselves. They won't have to ask you, why was it rejected? And very often we see that it's automatically rejected, and then we get a submission 5 minutes later. Again, time saved for all the people doing the reviews, all the infrastructure, because we don't have to accept a submission which then is going to be fixed again and again. And even for the developers, because basically they are being taught that, yeah, you did something wrong, here is how you can fix it, and they are going to fix it themselves. Yeah, that's basically that. And make sure that you can still override the bot. So, yeah. I will not say that we are, the release manager are Jedis, but sometimes we use our powers to make sure that things go through. Because this is still a bot, and sometimes the bot is really wrong. So we talked about the policies that we are enforcing and how we are enforcing. But you might wonder, yeah, but does it work? Is it? Give me numbers. So first on SLE 12, so the old code base, not all in the sense that it's released, it's shipped, but it's not a brand new that we are working on. So we have the concept of service pack, so we layer things on top of other things. So we have a code base, a SLE 12 code base, which is roughly 3,000 packages, 290, etc. Then on top of that, 1 year later, we did service pack 1, where we only changed 550 source packages. The rest was not even rebuilt. So the source is the same, the binary is the same, unless there are something which is changed in between, which needs to be rebuilt. And on top of that, we did service pack 2. We use some kind of TikTok semantic for our service pack. So one service pack is, the first service pack is stability fixes, not too much feature. The second service pack is, let's update the kernel and update the desktop and other things. And then again, a stability service pack. So 1 year we
Fix things, the other year you break things.
Yeah, thank you, Doji, for saying what I was about to say, but it's best that I don't say that. So 1 year we stabilize things, and one year we bring new feature. Let's put it in enterprise. Nice way. And on SLE 12 SP3, which was the first SLE distribution where we really enforced the factory first policy, we had roughly 500 source packages. 300 were forks, like we were diverging from factory, but we made sure that those changes were still pushed on openSUSE. And still, we had 20% of packages which were directly imported from the development distro, from factory, which saved a lot of time and effort for everybody. So this was, SLE 12, this is a process we've put in the middle of the development. Now, switching to SLE 15. We are currently at beta 6, which was released on Friday. We have 3,300 source packages, which is compared to SLE 15, about 10% more, but about the same number of packages. So on those 3,300 packages, source packages, we have only currently, when I did the extract on Friday, we have 7.4% of packages which are forks. So we have more than 92% of the distro which is already tumbleweed, which is factory. So our enterprise distribution is basically 90% openSUSE tumbleweed as a date of last Friday. Of course, so when I say it's identical at the source package level. So as SRPM are the same. What might be enable or not is we decide to patch things in. We apply a patch which is only relevant for SLE or for openSUSE in some case, but that's more the exception than the rule. For reasons that we discussed earlier, we don't ship KDE, for instance, on SLE, so sometimes there are packages which are going to build things or requires KDE, so we are going to disable that on SLE, etc. But that's not bad. So this is about SLE. let's switch. Yes, question.
How are your salespeople happy about saying that 92% of the enterprise distribution is the same as the public one?
So how our salespeople are going to sell the fact that our enterprise distro is basically the open-SUSE tumbleweed distro. So first, they don't yet know it.
That's why you came here, right?
Yeah. To make sure they won't know about it. No, more seriously, we still are going to. Tumbleweed is a rolling distro. So in 1 month, it will be farther away from SLE 15. So it's going to drift, and but we will make sure that our SLE code base has to be rock stable, etc. Insert all the thing about that, and yeah, we at this moment in time, yes, we are now at 90%. We will go lower on that. I have two questions in the back.
Yeah, I was wondering when you start freezing packages, you'll have a situation where things will differ. Shouldn't you have then a leap second policy where you say, okay, if we do backward fixes, we backward it first to leap and then it goes into sleep?
So the question was, yeah, you are going to freeze the version. So what about the backports? All the fixes are you going to do in SLE? What do? You push them to openSUSE? So yes, this part of the policy, or factory first policy, mentions that people should still submit their change to the openSUSE side of things. If it's a backport, often you don't have to do it because the version will be just updated in Tumbleweed and that's it. If it's just a patch, it has to be pushed. So we are still making sure that all changes, our stabilization effort benefit to openSUSE. Just for the sake of, in 3-4 years, when we rebase our enterprise product, we just want to have those fixes already in. We just don't want to redo the work again and again and again. Dodgy, you had a question? No? That's good? Okay. Yep. So I talked about SLE. Let's talk about Leap. So Leap, as a reminder, is the distribution which is using the core of the SLE source package. And then on top of that, a lot of more packages which are not shipped on SLE, or that the openSUSE community thinks we want something more recent than which is on SLE. So it's very small. But I have some graphs after which are a bit more readable. But roughly, for the latest Leap release, so 42.3, we had 10,000 source packages compared to 3,000 source packages in SLE. From those 10,000, 2,000 roughly were coming from SLE, so 20%. So openSUSE Leap is 20% SLE. All the rest is either coming from factory, 22%, and the rest is.
The majority is just 42.
Yeah, yeah, because we use the same concept of. I should have put my slides in. The order should be in the other order, 42.1, then 42.2, then 42.3. We use the same concept of service pack. So 42.3 is done on top of 42.2, which is done on top of 42.1. So the changes which are only in 42.3, they are coming from 20% SLE, 22% factory, a few things which are specific to this version, so a KDE5 LTS release, that the KDE people did nicely for, they made sure that their release schedule was a bit following the openSUSE Leap schedule, which was very nice from them. And then we inherit basically half of the packages from the previous release, and then again and again. You have to think, remember that openSUSE Leap is thought as a stable open source distro. So long-term support, or whatever you want to call it. For people who want something which is going very fast, we have another answer which is called openSUSE Tumbleweed. And we have lib15. Lib15, which is in beta, yep, thanks. Which is in beta for about 1 or 2 weeks. It's based on SLE15. It has roughly the same number of packages than lib42.3, so 10,000 packages, source packages. On those, you have 27% coming from SLE15. So SLE15, remember, 3,300 source packages, and from that we are able to reuse in lib 2,800 packages. Not bad. I should have done the math of how many percent of the SLE15 entire code base is in lib, but that's not bad. And the rest is coming directly from factory. And we have, a few bits from the develop project. So if you put that in a nice graph, you see that when we did the first lib release, 42.1, there was a bit chunk which was coming from SLE, and all the rest were coming from factory. And then over time, we reuse the packages from, so the percentage of packages used from SLE increased, which is good because it means that, what I forgot to say, that openSUSE lib, being based on SLE packages which are coming from SLE are maintained by the SUSE people. So when there are bug fixes, they have to be done by the SUSE people. So the community at large benefit from the work that the SUSE employees are doing, and fixes which are done for a paying customer on SLE, they end up, once a maintenance update is released to the SLE people, a while after, I think it's a few weeks or things like that, it's going to end up automatically in lib. So lib benefit from the fixes that people are paying SUSE to fix on SLE. So the more packages which are coming from SLE in openSUSE Tumbleweed means the less pressure work the community has to take care directly. They benefit from paying customer, basically. So that's nice. And yeah, lib15, as you see, about 30% from lib, a bit less, and the rest is from factory. That's nice. And with that, just to make sure that we are always improving, as Richard mentioned, we are agile. So we learn over time things which works, things which doesn't work, and we are trying to improve, smooth our process. We have a lot of discussion internally, but I'm really hoping that you have also questions, suggestions, so I'm open to that. Yes, yes.
So you said you're using openQA to test the updates that goes through. I'm referring to the diagram you saw here. So you have a small openQA that runs a few tests, and then you have the large openQA that runs all the tests at the end of the process, basically.
Yep.
For the first one, does it mean that for openQA works with screenshots, is that right?
So I'm repeating the question for the recording. So we have openQA, which is testing first when there is a change, a small subset of the entire test suite, and then once the change is accepted, the entire test suite. openQA is based on a screenshot, but and serial. And the thing is that once you have a distro which is installed by openQA, you can run anything in it, and you can run a different test suite inside, and just check the results in openQA. So that either it's the result of the test suite internally is going to be pushed to the serial console, or just display OK, and then the screenshot tool will check is OK appearing or not. But you didn't finish your question.
So are the packagers from the community that work on Factory and Tumbleweed providing the OpenQA test format?
So the question was, since we are heavily OpenQA based, are packager from community contributing to OpenQA? So yes. And even more than that, we are making sure that our test suite between the SLE product and the openSUSE product are shared as much as possible. I don't think we are at 100%, but
It's all in the same Git repo.
yeah. So it's all on GitHub. Other questions, remark? No, okay, so thanks, and if this is a kind of challenge you are interested in, SUSE has a lot of job opening, so